now then. So feels like flipping ages since I've been in here. I've had a bit of work done on one of the storage units, so I had to move a load of stuff, and then I've been away. So went away snowboarding with the family last week, and bit eventful. We broke 2 of my 3 kids. My daughter broke a leg on the Wednesday, and one of my sons injured his elbow on the Friday. So I had 2 days where I spent quite a bit of time in French medical centres, but anyway, kids are generally all right, so it's not too much of an issue. Just before I went away, I put this bike on the bench, and I was expecting not to really do very much to it at all. And I mean, I've not done a lot to it, but I've done a little bit more than I would normally, insofar as when I started looking at it, I realised it was actually a lot better bike and a lot closer to being a rideable, usable thing than what I'd anticipated. So I decided that there was a couple of bits and pieces. Well, the main thing was the shocks. So I'll show you. They're generally all right. They've lost their damping, so they need a rebuild. Now I had a set of YSS shocks, Piggyback Shocks. They've not got adjustable compression or rebound damping on them. They're just like a static shock. You can obviously change the preload on the spring, but you can't change the compression and rebound. So I had a set of those laying about because I race one of these bikes, and so I thought, right, I'll stick them on. So it had the original and these bits go with the bike. It had the original factory silencer on it, and I put the YSS shock on, and it's like, oh, it'll only work with that silencer if you turn the shocks upside down, which I don't think looks great. So I also had a Fresco silencer. It's used, I mean, all these things are used. The YSS shocks are used, but they're in perfect working order. The Fresco silencer is used, but it's in perfect working order. You wrap, well, I wrap. So as you go into fully compressed suspension, the shock moves up, and the piggyback hits the pipe a little bit. So I wrap some silicone hose round the pipe, so this pipe's got that done to it. There's probably a dent underneath the silicone hose, but it's not cracked or anything like that. So yeah, so I've put these shocks on because they're working and in perfect working order, whereas the other ones need a rebuild. Obviously, if you want to keep the bike standard or stock, then you'd have them rebuilt, and you could put the original silencer back on and stuff like that. But I thought, as a usable bike, stick these different shocks on, change that silencer over, and then you've got something that, with very, very, very little work, and I'll run through what work I think needs doing, this bike will be mega. So it looks, in the flesh, I don't know how the pictures are going to come out or how it's going to look on the video, but in the flesh it looks a lot better than the pictures that I saw of it when I bought it in America. It's honestly, it needs so little work. Really, it really needs a service, and when I say a service, I think it's going to need, for me, I'd stick new cables on it. So the front brake cable, I think, sticking a bit, stick a new clutch cable on it. The throttle, it does snap back, so you know, you probably don't need to change the throttle cable. Be nice to have a new front mudguard and a new rear mudguard on it, because these ones are a bit sun faded. Fresh set of tyres. check the front brake pads are fine. The brake shoes are fine. I've had a look at them. I'm not sure about the rears. I didn't check them out. But other than that, I mean, it's got great compression. I have had this bike running, so I do know. I've changed the gearbox oil. I've put 1040 oil in it, which is what Honda recommends. So 500 mils of 1040 oil. When I drained the old oil out, there was a bit of sludge in there. So I'd suggest run it a couple of times and change the oil after every time that you run it until you start getting that nice clear oil out of there. And I mean, the forks, okay, so the forks, the chrome is good on the forks. It's absolutely perfect. And when I lifted the gaiters up, one of the forks doesn't have a dust seal in it. So the other one, so one of them does, and one of them doesn't have a dust seal in it. So ideally, do the fork seals on the both of the forks. Would be a good thing to do. And other than that, I think really it's just a case of keeping on top of the maintenance. I mean, some people will say, you know, you need to do the crank seals. I mean, whether you do or not, I don't know. It's a precautionary measure. I've run loads of bikes where I've not bothered doing them. This bike sounds absolutely bang on, so I'd be personally tempted to run it without doing the crank seals. But I know I'll get slated for that. But it's just the way it is. Run it. Don't bother doing them. It could seize, or it might be absolutely fine for a long time. So, yeah, if you want to be absolutely bang on with it, get them seals done. I'd attempt to run it without. So let's do the normal thing and let's have a closer look at her. And let's see the good and the bad bits of her, and then we'll get some pictures, get her running, and I would take her up the road, but it's been absolutely throwing it down all day, so I'm not going to do that right now, but I have no doubt that she'll run perfectly. I mean, the brakes work, it shifts gears, the engine sounds great, all the controls work. What more do you want, really? And it's a red rocket. It's a 1979 Honda CR250 Elsinore red rocket, which is, to me, like I say, I've got one of these, and it's the bike. It's the bike that I love. It's the bike. I mean, I love all sorts of bikes. But this is one that I chose to race because I thought it was the best thing to ride. It's Honda, and as someone said to me the other day, the only bike better than a Honda is a Honda, and I love these. I think they're brilliant. So let's have a look at the good and the bad bits, and then we'll take it from there and get her running so you can hear that beautiful two-stroke engine and go from there. Like I say, it's got the original shocks, the original silencer here, all in good condition. The shocks need a rebuild because they're bouncy and they've obviously been leaking. Probably the shafts need re-chroming, but I can't say that for definite. The tank is pretty damn good. It's got a few little dents on it and a couple of little bits and pieces where there's little scratches on there. I've put new grips on it. There was no grips on it. They'd obviously turned to horrible sticky mush in the sun and the heat of California. There's a couple of scuffs and scrapes on the bars. The front number board is in great condition. The frame number is all intact and everything. The frame looks to be bang on. At some point it's obviously had the top end done. The colour of the head and the barrel is slightly different to the orangey colour of the rest of the engine. but that's a common thing. It's got the original chain guard on it, which is not very common at all. And when you look behind the sprocket and everything, it looks absolutely bang on. So looking around that area there, if it's thrown a chain or anything like that, there'll be damage. They're often damaged around this area. This one is not. I personally don't think that the engine has done a huge amount. There's virtually no scuff marks on the stator cover. It's obviously, it has been used, but I mean, I can tell you now, this wear here on my bike, I had the frame powder coated, and the first time I'd ridden the bike, all of that was worn off. So just because there's a little bit of wear doesn't mean it's been used and abused too much. It's got the clutch cable guide, which often goes missing. Like I say, the chrome on the forks looks bang on. The front mudguard, like I say, it's faded in the sun. I would say it could do with being replaced, but that's only a cosmetic thing. There's no reason that you couldn't run that and run it until it breaks or whatever and then replace it. It's got the original exhaust, which has got zero dents in it, which is pretty amazing. This bike's 42. It's exactly the same. In fact, it's slightly older than me. It's a 1979 model that was built in August 78. So it's actually 8 months older than I am. There you go. So there's a little bit of discoloration and on the fork legs, on the lowers. So they have like a plastic coating, and if the plastic coating gets worn through after stone chips and things like that, then the aluminium underneath starts to corrode slightly, and that's all that is. You can either clean that up and take it back to bare aluminium and polish it, or you could have it recoated, Cerakoted, or whatever you'd want. Or you could leave it if you're going to use it as a riding bike, which I would suggest this would make a perfect candidate for a riding bike. I would leave it exactly as it is, use it, keep it washed and clean, and it'll be cracking. The front rim is absolutely perfect. The spokes, there's very, very, very little corrosion or anything like that on there. In fact, I'm going to say there's pretty much none. There's no rust or anything like that. There's no dents or scrapes in the rim. It's the original rim. You don't often see bikes like that. Look, there's the original DID sticker on there. They've always disappeared, and if they've not, they've worn quite badly. So that would suggest to me, that's another reason why I think that this bike hasn't done a huge amount of work. Again, tank on this side, like I say, a couple of little marks on it, but nothing major. The actual colour and the paint on the tank is great. The pipe, like I said before, is in great condition. The head and the barrel on this side look perfectly fine. The original kickstart, look how little wear there is there. That when you kick it, that hits on the peg, and that takes like a chunk out of it the more it's kicked. But there's nothing on this bike. It's got a little bit of damage here. This is just the plastic coating that's come off the cover. Now, that was probably done in the container, I reckon, when I brought it over. It's got the original side stand. Someone's bent it, probably to make it lean over a little bit more, but probably could do with bending back a little bit. When you put it on that side stand, it leans over a bit far. Or you take the side stand off. I've took the side stand off mine because it's being used for motocross, and I'd rather not have the side stand on there, but there we go. It's each to their own, really. Foot pegs are original, genuine items in good working order. Like I say, the YSS shocks there are used, but probably only used for half a season, and they're in great condition, perfectly working order. Rear rim, again, is in absolutely perfect condition, no dents. You can't see where tyre levers have been used on here. It's the rims are in great condition. It does need tyres. This rear tyre has got a crack in it, but I mean that's a minor thing. It's got cracks around here as well. Rear brake plate, there's a tiny little bit of corrosion on the magnesium. That can be cleaned up. It can be left. Wash it, WD-40 it. It's gonna not corrode anymore, really. Like I say, the rim on this side is again perfect, and the spokes on the rear wheel, little bits of rust on some of them, but nothing major at all. It's the original rear brake arm, chain roller, chain guide. Now, what I've got on mine is I've got, you can get them from Chris Elderfield, you get a rear chain guide block, and it has a piece of aluminium that sticks up here. And what it means is that as you're going through the suspension travel, the chain isn't going to eat into the rear shock. So putting something like that on, a rear chain guide block like that, or making your own little protector would be worthwhile doing. The seat, I'm saying that this is the original seat cover, and it's started to split a bit on the back. It's gone a little bit hard. You could still use it, and in fact what I'd say is use it until it splits more and it's unusable, and then replace it for a new one. But other than that, the thing is gorgeous. I mean, there are an item of beauty, the Red Rocket. Absolutely lovely bike. I hope I'm not overselling it, because I do think it's gorgeous, and I really think as a riding bike in unrestored condition, original condition, I think you don't find them like this really very often, and this is a cracking find. So let's do the gearbox check on it, and then we'll get it fired up, and then we'll take some pictures, and I'll stick it up on the old eBay. It's going to go on a classified ad, this, for £5,500, because it's I don't want to just give it away, and I know that I think at £5,500 I think it's well worth it, well worth it. You see some of the price of some of them, and they're going for silly money these days, but I think at £5,500 I think it'll be a good buy for someone, and a good riding and original bike. That, like I say, I've changed the shocks and the silencer, but the original shocks and silencer will come with it, so you can have them refurbed, and you can stick them back on if you want to keep it original, and that would be a great thing. There we go. So if you've seen these videos before, you'll know that I do a gearbox check. So it's basically static. It's checking whether the bike goes through the gears, whether it's got all of its gears there. So it's a 5-speed box in this bike. So what we do is we spin the back wheel, that's in neutral, and click down, that's into first. So the engine does turn over in first, just about. I'll not be able to get it to turn over again, I don't think. So anyway, up into second, and as you go up the gears it gets easier to turn, but third, but we just there we go, third, just turn the engine over, fourth, and just as you get to top dead centre, there we go, fourth, and it's turned over again, and fifth, a lot easier to turn over now, and that's the top of the box, there's no more gears there. down to fourth, third, second, and back into neutral, so that it's got all of its 5 gears. Next job to do is to get it fired up. I'll go and put my dog away in the house so we can't hear him barking at us, because he flipping loves to do that when the bikes fire up, he does. So I'll take him, put him back in the house, and get her fired up for you, and you can hear her running, and that beautiful 2-stroke sound, and yeah, you'll love it, I love it. Okay, so let's get her. I've just had her running, to be fair. I had her running earlier on, and then I've just fired her up, so I know she's gonna go easy. Makes it sound good. Gorgeous thing. Love it. Great bike. Oh, I had to change the kill switch. The other kill switch didn't work. Then when I started having a little quick look at it, it fell apart. So anyway, I have one gorgeous 1979 Honda CR250 Red Rocket Elsinore. For me, the bike to have. Obviously everyone has their own little opinions, don't they? But I particularly love this one, partially because it's my birth year. Do you know what I mean? 1979 bike. What more do you want? You want the bike that was made in the year you were born, don't you? Or you want the bike that you raced, but these things are older than what I would have raced. Yeah, just a flipping gorgeous thing. I wasn't expecting it to be as nice when I pulled it out. And then when I started looking at it, it's just like, the thing is lovely. Really will need very little work to make it usable. So yeah, someone's going to get a lovely bike, and I'm hoping that at £5,500 it'll be just the right money for someone. It's not the super expensive ones that you don't want to ride. You could do a little bit of work to it, make it worth a bit more money, put some of your own bits and pieces on it, or put it back to completely stock, and it's always going to be a fantastic thing. So there we go. First bike back from my holiday. I've got a few more in the van ready to do tomorrow, but I've got to take my daughter to the hospital in the morning, so I won't necessarily be getting to look at all of them, but I'll hopefully be back tomorrow with a couple more videos. Please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just search Phoenix Motos.